The Dreamer. Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Today we get to start the story of Joseph and begin to analyze this important and critical story um, in our Bible today. And so, I love the story of Joseph. If I had to pick a story out of the Bible, which was, in my opinion, my favorite or what have you, I'd have to pick the story of Joseph because it's so important with respect to the gospel message. There are so many parallels and important points. I mean, there are other stories too, such as the binding of Isaac. That has to do mostly with, of course, the atoning work of the Mashiach as it's related in Jewish concepts and so forth. Then, of course, you have the Exodus itself, which is the story of the Exodus is the overview, uh, the the layout, if you will, the blueprint for really the entire gospel message. But story of Joseph and his brothers and his subsequent decline and rise to power and so on is really encapsulates the personal aspect of the gospel message and really it answers an important question, and that is and by the way, a valid question amongst Jewish people particularly, and that is, if Yeshua is the Messiah, then how come Jews don't accept him? Or how, or sometimes it's put, why is it that the Jewish people rejected him? So we're going to get to that question in just a second. It's a valid question. I'm going to give you the answer right off the bat. So good morning. Glad you're here. Please be sure and like this video. That's very important. Don't forget to hit the like button. All of you, you've been doing a great job of it so far. Let's not let up on that because it's making a big difference. We are 5 subscribers away as of when I started this broadcast. 5 subscribers away from reaching 11,000 subscribers. Pardon me, 11,000 subscribers on this channel. And that is a wonderful thing. So if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, pardon my reach, I'm going to grab something real quick. Get over here. Thank you. If you have not yet done that, please be sure and subscribe because it's making a huge difference, a huge impact on the lives of people. Hey, did you know something? Just a little statistic here for those of you who watch the program on a daily basis. And by the way, hope that you've been enjoying the You've Heard It Said series. I hope that's been bringing some light to you. and yesterday we published, by the way, Randy Hansen's conversion experience testimonial that he put out there. We published that on the channel. Already has 244 views on it. I just posted that yesterday, and I mean, it's practically gone viral. But anyway, it's really good. So if you haven't checked that out, please be sure and do that. But listen, hey, did you know that in a month's time, YouTube does the statistics on a 28-day cycle, that we have about 31,000 views in a month? Presently, that's what's going on. That this is fairly consistent, by the way. Sometimes more, slightly less, whatever, depends on the time of year, but 31,000 views this month. And watch time hours, the number of hours that people watch various videos on this channel and so forth is 6,500 hours presently. And again, that's fairly consistent. So isn't that amazing? Isn't that incredible? I just want to share those statistics with you because you may be wondering, like, do people really watch? Is this really something that they do? And the answer is, yeah, they do. And so I'm very excited about that. Very thankful for that. It's very much a blessing. So glad you're here. Hope you're having a great week. And of course, this week we begin Hanukkah, which is all the better, right? So going back to Joseph and his brothers, very, very valid question. How come Jews don't accept Yeshua? If Yeshua is the Messiah, then why is he rejected? I mean, as it is right now, as it is at this moment in history, the only Messiah figure that you cannot believe in And in other words, if you believe in this particular Messiah, even if you're 100% kosher Jew, as we are, you're going to be rejected. You won't be accepted. You'll be, whatever, looked down upon. You won't not invited to the party, etc. The only one is Yeshua. Did you know that? Did you know that? Did you know that there are several Messianic figures in Judaism today? There are various rabbis that people believe that are the Messiah. They're passed away now. They're dead. Well, not all of them. There's over the last couple of years, some other rabbi guy has popped up, and everybody, has whispered that they think he's the Messiah, or not everybody, but a lot of people. I don't even know his name, and it doesn't even matter because he's not. But it doesn't matter. The point is that made the rounds on the internet last year. I think it was. Everybody was sending me these videos. Rabbi, have you heard about this guy? They're all saying he's the Messiah. Of course, the people that are sending me the videos, they knew he was the Messiah. They were just simply making an observation. And it was true. There was tens of thousands. I haven't heard anything about that lately. I don't know if it kind of fizzled out, I guess, but it doesn't matter. He's not the Messiah, so it's irrelevant. The point, in fact, is that there are many, many such people, and have been over the history, right? There are rabbis in the grave today, and they have followers who absolutely believe that that person in the grave is the Messiah 100%, just waiting to be resurrected, waiting to be revealed, okay? Or reincarnated. There's different ways that they think about it, or what have you. And the bottom line is that's fine. That's fine. If you're Jewish and you happen to believe that that person is the Messiah, shoulder shrug. Okay. I may not agree with you, but who cares? And you know why? Because actually, with respect to halakha, being Jewish has nothing to do with who you believe the Messiah is. Did you know that? The belief of the Messiah as a Jew, and I'm talking here about specific belief, as I believe so-and-so is the Messiah, is completely irrelevant. There's nowhere in Jewish law, anywhere, that says if you believe that so-and-so is the Messiah, you are not a Jew. Did you know that? Now, we have to believe in the Messiah in general. Okay, so if you're a Jew and you don't believe in a Messiah or the Messiah, period, like you think the Messiah thing, that's a myth, that's never going to happen, then yeah, you're outside of halakha. You're not really a Jew, actually. Okay, but as far as I do believe the Messiah, and I think it's him, or I think it's him, who cares, right? The only one. And this way, people drive me all crazy. This happens all the time. They'll write negative reviews and so forth and say, you guys are fakes. You guys are phonies. Y'all aren't real Jews. Really? Why? Why aren't we real Jews? By the way, no one says that to me in Israel. When I'm in Israel, everybody's like, you're Jewish. Of course I am. Why? Because of halakha. But anyway, and by the way, the people who say this, by the way, 9 times out of 10 aren't even Jews themselves. But let's put that aside. They say, you're not Jewish. Why? Because you believe in Yeshua. I'm sorry, where is that in halakha? They don't even know what halakha is. But putting that aside, it's not there. All right. So this brings us back to this question of, if Yeshua is a Messiah, then how come all the Jews reject him? And how come they rejected him in the beginning? Well, first of all, I would say it's not really historically accurate that the Jewish people rejected him in the beginning. Right? Because he had disciples, right? Who were what? Jews. So therefore, it's inaccurate to say that all the Jews rejected him, right? Right. Also, we learn that there were thousands and tens of thousands of Jews who believed in the Messiah and were faithful to the laws of Moses, right? This is what Kepha says anyway in the book of Acts, right? Right. So is it accurate to say that the Jewish people totally rejected Messiah? No. We know historically there was a group of Jews, a significant group called the Ebionites, who rejected Paul for good reason, and yet were believed in Yeshua and were faithful to the Torah. We know that those people group existed. They were Jews, were they not? Yes, they were. Okay, so it's not accurate to say that all the Jews rejected the Messiah. All right. Why do Jews reject Messiah, or why do they really start rejecting him? And the answer, of course, is Paul and the false gospel and blah, blah. But let's go back to this question because it's important. As it is right now, the brothers, for the most part, not entirely, because clearly we're Jews and we don't reject him, but they, for the most part, do reject him. It's actually a good thing. What? Dun, dun, dun. What? Did you know that actually rejecting the Messiah is proof that he's the Messiah? What? Charlie, did you get that? Write that down. Put that. Yeah. No, put down the bagel and thanks. All right. So listen, it's true. The Midrash, the Yemenite Midrash actually says that the sages are going to go. I read this not too long ago. I think it was a week or two ago. They're actually going to go. Yeah, I did. I did it during, I read it during the Drosh of he died for our sins. The sages go to Galilee. They meet the Messiah. They ask him, are you the Messiah? He says, yes, I am. And it says, and they hate him. This story of Joseph and his brothers, ladies and gentlemen, is actually proof of that fact. The brothers rejected Joseph. Joseph became, according to the Midrash Rabbah, the savior of the world. So actually, and by the way, it wasn't limited to Joseph. As it turns out, every single true redeemer that Israel has ever had, every single one, to include David and Moses, every single one, every true redeemer that Israel has had, to include Samson, by the way, every single one has been rejected by the people of Israel every single time. There's not one redeemer that we ever had that was a true redeemer that we initially accepted. Did you know that? So there's a phenomenon here. So the idea when people say to me, well, Yeshua can't be the Messiah because Jews reject him, so clearly that means he's not. To me, it's like, no, it doesn't. It's actually is proof that he is because of the story of Joseph and his brothers. So that's where we're leading off with today. But Joseph was a dreamer. Dream. There's so much about this story I want to talk about. I'm trying to decide where I want to do with this book right now. Let's put it over here. All right, let's go into the insights. There's just so many insights. It's the story of Joseph is just phenomenal. But let's just begin with Rabbi Munn's commentary and go from there. I'm not even going to worry about it where to begin because you can begin anywhere. Story's so good. So it says here, Jacob settled. That's the name of our parashah. Okay. And it says Jacob settled. The account which begins here has excited admiration throughout the generations. It is of incomparable teaching. Okay. It is of incomparable teaching value, is what Rabbi Monk says. Okay. It deals with the most profound thoughts in a way so simple and direct that they are accessible to every child. This is Rabbi Monk here is talking about the story of Joseph and how important it is, how deep it is, and yet how simple it is even for a child to get it. And this is what I love. See, this again is so beautiful. This is so much like the gospel message of Messiah Yeshua. It's deep, it's spiritual, it's Kabbalistic, and yet it's logical. You know, we were at the Oneg table, just a really quick little statement here. At the Oneg table this last Shabbat, and people were talking about their journey to Lapid Judaism. And of course, many of them came vis-a-vis the church in some way or another. And people were talking about the fact that in the church world in general, and again, the church also includes Messianic and Hebrew roots and all that. It's all the same. Nothing made sense. Nothing made sense. Okay. You know, there was no dots to connect. It was etc. But everything makes sense in the Lapid world. All the dots connect, and not forcibly connected. We're not making stuff up. You know, we're not doing theological gymnastics. In fact, that's the beautiful thing. You don't have to play theological twister. It just flows. You let the game come to you. It just flows. So anyway, so it says, and so the episode is of prime importance for the religious and moral education of a child. So this is interesting because Rabbi Monk is making the case here that the story of Joseph should be taught to children because it's of such importance. And it is. Because like I was saying a second ago, a lot of Jewish people think today, erroneously, that if the Messiah or when the Messiah shows up, that we'll know he's a true Messiah because everybody's going to love him. Guys, that's just fundamentally not true. It's also, in terms of human nature, not true. Let me give you an example. Okay. I said earlier that there's lots of different Jewish people out there, and they have their own idea of who the Messiah actually is. So let's use an example. So you have, I'm not going to mention any names because it doesn't matter. So you have big O huge Jewish sect A, and they believe that their dead rabbi is the Messiah. And they have believed this for a long time. Okay. Decades, maybe centuries. Okay. Then you have big O huge groups, Jewish sect B, and they believe that their dead rabbi is the Messiah. Okay. And both groups, both A and both B, have posters all over town and blah, blah, Mashiach, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they believe this stuff and they teach it and they live it for all these many years. Okay. Well, they both can't be the Messiah, right? So let's just propose for a moment that one of these two dead rabbis are actually the Mashiach. Is it A or is it B? Well, let me ask you a question, friend. If group B turns out to be the Messiah, how do you think group A is going to feel? If group A turns out to be the Messiah, how do you think group B is going to feel? And if your answer is, oh, they'll be sweet and accept it, you are living in delusion. Okay? All right. So this is why it's important to understand the book of Joseph, or story rather of Joseph, is because as a Jew, you have to understand that when the Mashiach comes, we are going to be disappointed. In fact, I wish I had this video. I don't have it. I've mentioned it several times in my tenure. Golly, I wish I had it. But there was a rabbi one time. I know I can't prove it to you because I can't show you the video. But there was a Hasidic rabbi one time who was making a comment on a little teaching he was doing. And he was talking about the Mashiach. And he said, when the Messiah shows up, we are all, obviously talking about Jews, we are all going to be shocked and dismayed because he is not going to be anything about who we think he's going to be. In terms of who, not he's going to be Torah-true Jew, yes, but in terms of who he is and so forth. And of course, I'm watching the video going, yeah. I wish I had that video. Golly, I did look for it years ago, couldn't find it. Anyway, goes on to say, the guiding principle of this episode applies first and foremost to Genesis, but it's also valid for biblical history as a whole. Did you know, by the way, the story of Joseph occupies almost half of the book of Genesis? You ever thought about that? The book of Joseph, think about it. The book of Joseph, the story of I keep saying the book of Joseph, excuse me. The story of Joseph occupies nearly half of the book of Genesis. It says, it is that the divine message and the great lesson of duty are taught to man, not by means of abstract formula, but with the help of living examples of human beings who, like ourselves, feel and give in and sin. And yet, even when they do stray, they remain aware of the unique path of truth and they rise up again. That's why the story of the patriarchs is so great. And it's why we have to, as I've done here a lot, pay attention to the mistakes they made We talked about, Rachel recently, right? And her mistakes. People don't want to. I got a message not too long ago from somebody that doesn't want to accept it. Oh, Rachel wasn't an idolater. She didn't have a problem with idolatry. Blah, excuse. That's not helpful, friends. It's not helpful when we make excuses for our failures, right? That doesn't help us. It doesn't. It's better for us to just be honest and say, "Yep, that was a big old fat sin, and let's learn from it." Right? Instead of going, "Oh no, that I know that I see that in plain sight, but that's not what it was." That's, by the way, that's also a type of not a type. It actually is the clinical definition of gaslighting. Um, I see you stealing a candy bar, and then you tell me, "No, I wasn't stealing it. I was just putting it in my pocket to keep it warm." That's gaslighting. No, I'm not an idolater. I don't struggle with idolatry. I was taking these idols so that my dad couldn't use them. That's gaslighting. So it says here, in the land of the father sojourning, after his many ordeals, Jacob wanted to live in peace, but that wasn't to be so. Okay. He was going to have some more trials up ahead, and that's a lesson to us all that life is not always a bowl of cherries. So it says here, these are the chronicles of Jacob, Joseph. Now, this is an important statement here. Vayeishev Yaakov, ba'aretz me gore. And he settled in the land of his sojournings. Okay, it goes on to say, the second verse of our parashah, Ele toldot Yaakov. So it says, these are the generations of Jacob, Joseph. This is a very subtle but important statement in the beginning of our story. These are the generations of Jacob, Joseph. What? Jacob has 12 sons. If it's going to tell us about the generations of Jacob, how come it doesn't start enumerating and detailing his sons? Why does it just say Joseph? And here's the answer. The Midrash explains that the Torah wanted to make the history of Jacob dependent upon that of Joseph for many reasons. Indeed, the whole history of Jacob's descendants is reflected in Joseph's life. The favorite son of the patriarch in the prime of his youth was compelled to flee from the home of his parents and the land of his birth. Sound familiar? He was abandoned in a foreign land among a debauched people. Hashtag Rome. They did all they could so that even his name would be forgotten. Not only did they try to get rid of Joseph, not only did they sell him to Goyim, not only did they try to kill him, basically, they even tried to erase his name, which is why today, it's frustrating, but I've had conversations with Jewish people, people who, and so forth. And they say, well, you're not Jewish because you believe in JC. And I explained to them, look, we don't believe in JC at all. Here's why, blah, blah, blah. We believe in Yeshua, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And here's why, here's the difference. Okay. And then they completely ignore what I say. And they come right back and say, yeah, but you believe in JC. Why do they do that? Why do they ignore it? Why do they refuse? Because they're trying to erase his name. Why? Because they know that the name of Yeshua is legitimate. And if they can erase it, all the better, right? That's why. It goes back to this story. They tried to do the same for Joseph. So it says, but what happened to him? So they tried to get rid of him. They try to erase his name. But what happened? All the trials and tribulations of his destiny were turned into a springboard for his prodigious ascent. He became a benefactor who gave food to the people. And it ultimately came to pass that his brothers, who had sworn to do away with him, they said, you will never be the king of us. Your dreams are a joke. We are going to get rid of you. You're not even a Jew. we're going to get rid of your name. It says here, what happened? They all came to kneel before him. And it says here, listen to this statement from Rabbi Monk. This is important, okay? And I quote, "This same destiny will one day come to pass in the life of jewelry." What does that mean? It means that the brother that we rejected, the one that we tried to eliminate his name, don't say the name Yeshua. You can say JC all day long as a Jew. You believe in JC. You can say that all day long, but don't ever say the name of Yeshua. Why? Because we got rid of that name. This is why names matter. It's not just about etymology. It's about the caricature of the Messiah. JC is not Yeshua. Not even close. Inasmuch as Pharaoh is not Joseph. Okay? So it says here that brother that we rejected, that one that we said, you will never be the boss of me, that one we're going to kneel before. That's what it's saying here. Okay? Does Rabbi Monk believe that Yeshua is a Messiah? No. But what he does know is that one day we will kneel before the Mashiach who we had rejected. Why? Because that's what the sources say. And a lot of Jews don't know that. A lot of Jews don't know that we will initially reject the Messiah, just like we initially rejected Moses, just like we initially rejected David, just like we initially rejected Joseph, right? When the time comes for the Messiah, the nations will acknowledge that all the trials and sufferings will have befallen us during our exile were ultimately stages in our ascent. And we, of course, will eventually thank God for that. So just as with Joseph's lives in the final analysis, the tribulations and torments willed by providence are seen to be truly to our benefit. So Joseph, the story says he would bring, first of all, let me start here. He would bring evil reports to his brothers, okay, or about his brothers rather. So Joseph had a flaw here. And Joseph's flaw, we don't, was that he doesn't, that he brought evil reports about his brothers. That was his flaw. He was a tattletale. Nobody likes a tattletale, and that's not good. Okay. One of Jacob's flaws is that he loved Joseph more than any of his other sons. And of course, those of us who are parents know that that's a big no. You want to start a family drama quick, go ahead and show favoritism to one of your children. But I will say it's very common. It's very easy to do because inevitably there's that child that reminds that we have an affinity for some reason above the others. Okay. And there's a whole host of reasons why that may be the case. Trust me, all of us parents know what that's about. Okay. However, we have to resist that temptation because it never leads to anything good. Okay. But Jacob made that mistake. Now, one of the reasons, and this is interesting because one of the reasons why the sources bring down, both Rabbi Monk mentions it and also the Talmud Chumash mentions it, is that one of the reasons why Jacob loved Joseph so much, one of the reasons is that Joseph looked just like him. Joseph was the exact striking, as it says here in the Talmud Chumash, physical resemblance of Jacob. Now, that brings us to an interesting point with respect to the spiritual picture here. The Messiah, if you will, Joseph, that we rejected, the one we try to kill and erase his name, is the image of the Father. The one that will eventually sit upon the throne, the one before whom we will kneel, is literally the image of the Father. So now we have two situations in which we have the image of the Father. When we told the story about Abraham offering Isaac on the altar, we know that Isaac looked just like Abraham. Therefore, upon the altar was offered the image of the Father. Now we have a story whereby the Messiah, the Savior of the world, to quote the Midrash, that we reject is the image of the Father. The one that we rejected, that we tried to erase his name, that we said will never be boss of us and will never be king of us, eventually will sit upon a throne and we will kneel before him, and that will be, in fact, the image of the Father. And then Yeshua said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. So we put all those things together and we say there's a pattern here, and we cannot ignore the pattern. Okay, there's a reason why the sources say what they say. And by the way, let me do another commercial for rabbinic literature. If you reject rabbinic literature, you know none of this, because this is not stated in the written Torah, but it is stated in the very valid, very important, very legit oral Torah. And if you reject the oral Torah, you're ignorant of this fact, and therefore you rob yourself of a critically important pattern that substantiates the Mashiach. Okay. Somebody was pointing out that they had watched a video of a young couple who, converted to traditional Orthodox Judaism without Messiah, and they had formerly been believers in Mashiach, but came to believe that he wasn't Messiah. Why did they come to believe that? Because they know nothing about the rabbinic traditions, the oral Torah. Not just, I say rabbinic traditions, that's not a fair characterization, but they know nothing about the rabbinic literature and oral Torah and so forth. And so therefore they were easily convinced. It'd be easy. You come at, as a Jew, you come at me and you want to tell me that JC is the Messiah, and all you do is believe in the word of God, which really to you means the letters of Baal. It's going to be like Mike Tyson fighting a first-year Golden Glove student. It's an easy beatdown. Okay, this is why Lapid Judaism is so important. One of the reasons. So it says here, so Jacob loved him more than his other sons. That was bad. The Zohar gives another reason. Jacob loved Rachel and her son Joseph, and he knew that Rachel's children will be instruments in mankind's final redemption in the Messianic time. So in other words, what it's saying here, according to the Zohar, is that Jacob saw in Joseph some type of messianic prophecy. The text discreetly hints at this reason when it designates the patriarch here as Israel. It was indeed as father of the nation given the messianic calling that Jacob cherished Joseph. So what's really being said here in kind of the in the spiritual sense, and that is that what he sees in Joseph is that there is going to be what eventually is going to become known in rabbinic literature as the Messiah ben Joseph. That is the Messiah, the suffering servant, the suffering Joseph. Okay. Now, we come to the story of the woolen tunic. So we learn that Jacob loved his son Joseph more than anybody else, and then he gives him the coat, the coat of many colors. Okay. And the coat of many colors, as it turns out, I'm just going to skip over this really quickly, but it's important. The coat of many colors that he gives to him ends up being the coat that God had made Adam. Okay. Remember, that's the coat that Esau stole from Nimrod. Nimrod had stolen it, or gotten it rather from his father Ham. Ham had stolen it from Noah, and it ended up in Esau. Esau left it to Rebekah to take care of it. Rebekah gave it to Jacob. Jacob used that coat to deceive his father, and now he has this coat. And that coat he ends up giving to Joseph. That coat originally belonged to Adam. It had been made for Adam by God. And so you can imagine now, understanding this reality, the brothers really, really, really hate him now a whole lot. Because now by giving Joseph that coat, Jacob was making a pretty important statement, and that is, this is not just the son that I love more than all of you. This is the son who is really above all of you, the one who actually has the anointing. And that caused jealousy, which jealousy was a big factor. In fact, it was at the time that Messiah came. The reason they rejected Messiah was because of jealousy. The reason that they reject the Messiah today is because it's been taught that he taught against the Torah. Okay. But anyway, I digress. So from this point forward, now we get to finally the idea that Jacob becomes a dreamer. And so we're going to dive into these dreams. We're kind of out of time at the moment. We're going to dive into the dreams in the specific detail tomorrow. But with respect to these dreams, Joseph begins to have a couple of dreams whereby he is seeing himself ruling over his brothers, and his brothers aren't having it. They hate this kid. They hate his ever living guts. And this is why when he goes out to seek his brothers, they see him coming and they say to themselves, here comes that dreamer, the dreamer. Okay. So he's known to them as the dreamer because of these dreams that he's having. And these dreams have to do, unbeknownst to them, they look at it as they're just dreams that have to do with him ruling over them. But unbeknownst to them, they're actually dreams about him being their savior. But nevertheless, they absolutely despise him. They despise these dreams, and they completely reject him. So listen, it's a big story. We've got lots to talk about tomorrow. We're going to get into the third Aliyah, but I'm going to share the insights to more specifics into these dreams and a couple of insights with respect to Messiah ben Yosef, who is the suffering Messiah, which I've said numerous times. Most Jews aren't even familiar with the Messiah ben the Messiah ben Yosef, Messiah ben David paradox. They're not even understanding that. So we're going to get into that, and probably through that, you'll see more of why Jews, which would include us, we reject Jesus. We do not believe in Jesus at all. We believe in Yeshua, and there is a huge difference. And this story begins to explain that difference. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here. Please be sure and like this video, share it with all of your friends, and be sure and be here tomorrow. This is a lot of information, I know, but we're going to get to it, as much of it as possible. Shalom Aleichem to all of you. Have a great and amazing day. Hey, let's see if we can hit 11,000 today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Let's see if we can't get those 5 today and hit 11K. Shalom Aleichem to all of you. Be richly blessed.